Hey everybody, I'm going to give you guys a second and let me know tech-wise if you can hear me when somebody jumps on live here. Make sure that you can hear me and see me all right. I might open things up on my laptop as well. I'm not overly confident with my tech setup today. So I'm gonna give it a minute just to make sure that tech is on my side before I get started. Awesome. It looks like some people are joining, so I think that things are going right. Yes, yay, and I see myself on my laptop. Wonderful. All right, so I'm Tracy Goody, for those of you who have not connected with me before. And I just want to take a second to get nice and grounded. Live video is a stretch for my nervous system still, so I just want to take a moment. Just breathing into the heart chakra and just inviting you to do the same. Grounding our energy, grounding any excess energy as well. This is such a power-filled summit. Thank you very much, Amina. Such a powerful summit that we want to continue breathing in what we're actually receiving, and as well as grounding them. Okay, so number one, thank you, Deepika, for that beautiful transmission. I caught some of it. I was also prepping for my own presentation here, but I caught some of it with the flower DNA and goddess activations. Really, really powerful. So I'm so excited to check out everybody's actually. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Tracy Goody. I am a practical ascension guide. So my whole kind of jam is breaking ascension down into practical pieces. And I love today how my life is really mirroring this to me as I'm doing this live today. There's 4 kids running around doing their Saturday morning things, a dog, and a 3-piece band here at my house. So I do have the AirPods on, so hopefully that should cut down on any noise. So practical ascension is my whole thing, because just because we're in this ascension process and in this spiritual journey does not mean that our modern lives stop. So we need to find a way to really integrate the two and make ascension an everyday normal part of our lives so we can continue the ascension process while we're continuing our modern lives. So I help, emerging spiritual leaders and people at all times on their ascension path to really expand into what's coming up for them, learn how to move through it. So today I'm talking about 6 keys to the ascension process and how working with the Akashic records really allows these things to take on a practical approach. And I had to actually check out Becky's video yesterday because I saw she had a hashtag on hers. It was like 6 keys to ascension. I was like, well, I should probably check that out and make sure it's not the same keys that I'm sharing. But she was sharing about the stages of ascension, and I'm sharing about the kind of keys and tools to ascension. So I love that. I love how everybody's work really collaborates beautifully together on this summit. So I do want to take a moment as well to thank Catherine for putting this together, creating this space, and everybody who is contributing, everybody who is watching, everybody who is expanding through this summit. Okay, I'm gonna get right to my notes here, and I don't want to go over on time, but I don't have a second timepiece, so maybe I'll just pop open my laptop so I make sure that I'm good. All right, so much information. Hi, France. Yay, thank you guys for joining me live, and thanks everybody who's checking out the replay. All right, so number one, let me just kind of clarify what I mean by the Akashic records. So my own exploration of the Akashic records, just started out as kind of a general exploration, and the more that I practiced with it and the more that I dipped into it, the more that I was really getting this guidance to expand deeper. So I have this very natural energy of alchemist. So I always want to put things together, see how things work together. And that's one of the reasons I love Deepika's presentation so much, is because she's combining these elements together, right? Love combining elements together. So I kept getting that call in the records. And it was probably a good full year before I actually listened to it, because I had this whole program of, no, you do exactly as you're taught, and don't diverge from that. Don't try and expand on it, because this is the way that it is and this is the system. So once I broke out of that mindset and allowed myself and gave myself the permission to explore, I was able to tap into kind of a richer experience of the Akashic records. So as opposed to kind of the way that I was taught working with the records, one way to access it, the records are in the 6th dimension, it expanded out for me, and I began connecting into the Akashic records multidimensionally. So this opened up a whole other world once I gave myself the permission to, you know, journey into the records as I was feeling called to and see what was in there. So that led to, besides the growth on my part and the amazing way that it unfolded, it also led to me creating my own method of connecting into the records, which is the Ascension Alchemy method, which I teach to others as well, and is such an unbelievably fun process. So my experience with the records is that during this time of ascension, we're also getting greater access to our spiritual gifts, and one of those gifts is the Akashic records, is having our own intuitive connection, not having to go outside of ourselves to receive this information from our Akashic records. So this is one of the reasons I'm incredibly passionate about teaching it, because I think everybody should be accessing their Akashic records if they're called to. All right, so super powerful tool, and I'm gonna break down some of the different ways that we can work with the Akashic records for the ascension process as I go through my 6 keys. The way that I'm kind of thinking of it too is kind of like in the same way that when we're hungry, we're like, okay, let me go open the fridge and see what there is to eat. Whenever we're feeling spiritually hungry or whenever we're not sure what's going on, we're like, okay, let me open up my Akashic records and see what's going on here. And you'll understand from my keys whenever I'm exploring them that this isn't to discount, you know, going to somebody else for reading or listening to other people's intuitive information. This is what I would call self-led ascension. So practical ascension is self-led ascension. So you are leading yourself on the ascension path. This is, you're feeling the call for the ascension, you're feeling call for a deeper spiritual journey. So you're like, okay, I've made the choice, now I am moving forward on this self-led ascension path. Okay, so that's the picture I want to paint, right? And most of us are at some point on that path. Referring back to my notes, I don't want to miss everything. Okay. All right, so that's what I mean by practical ascension. Moving on to the keys now. Yay. Okay. And it was so much fun prepping this content too, because I realized how much more I have to share on these. So I am expanding these teachings to, you can check out my Practical Ascension podcast. I'm going to be exploring these a little bit more in the coming weeks. All right, okay, so Practical Ascension key number 1 is that this is human ascension. Human ascension. So we are humans. We have human needs, and we need to remember this during ascension. So with key number 1 is human ascension. I've kind of broken that down into 4 pieces, right? So piece number 1 is physical survival to physical thriving. So this goes down to like basic needs, right? So if you're wanting to move forward on your ascension path and expand and get into all this stuff, but your basic physical needs are not feeling met and you are in a state of stress response, then it's going to be tricky to be absorbing new information, to be identifying with yourself as a divine being and unlimited if you're in that spot. So what I mean by that is food, water, shelter, making sure that you are healthy, that you're rested, these key areas, right? If one of these key areas is really at the forefront of your circumstances, at the forefront of your experience, it's gonna wanna pull your attention first so that you don't have a lot of excess energy and resources for the ascension journey. So getting yourself aligned in these areas, getting yourself feeling at a place where you're grounded and you're kind of coming close to harmony. This doesn't mean that like, if you're not in perfect health, don't go down the ascension path. It just means that health is gonna be your opening into the ascension path, all right? So number 1 of the practical ascension keys is that it's human ascension. And so again, broken that down into 4 things. Number 1, physical survival to thriving. So shifting anywhere where you're feeling like you're just surviving in those areas into the energy of thriving. And then moving down to consciousness, moving from survival consciousness to thriving consciousness. So this is another version where if you find that you're in your stress response all the time, and all I mean by that is that like you're focused on things that are bringing that fear, that fight or flight into your body, then your energy is not going to be poised in the way to, it's not a block to ascension, totally a pathway, Courtney. Totally, everything is a pathway to ascension. So whenever you're in this fear response, again, all of your resources, all of your energy, your mental energy, your physical energy is going to protect your body, to make you really pay attention to what's going on around you. When you're in fear response, you're like, what's going on around me? What's going on around me? That's what you're focusing on. So bringing yourself into an area where it's less about survival consciousness and more about thriving consciousness allows you to bloom and open up. And then you have that, you have the mental, you have the energetic, you have the physical capacity to expand into your ascension pathway. So if you're in fear response a lot, that's the first thing you want to pay attention to, and saying, how can I shift my focus and attention, and how can I come back to a place that has more peace anchored, more grounding anchored. And maybe that can be a simple shift of changing what you're paying attention to, changing, you know, what you're looking at on social media, changing what you're watching on TV. So just paying attention to where you're at with your stress response. All right, so again, reviewing the 6 keys of practical ascension. First key is that it's a human ascension. So we do have human needs, and I've gone through making sure physically you feel good, you feel secure, making sure consciously you feel secure, so not in that stress response. Now also looking at our human need for community and connection, right? We've been going through the last like 5,000 years or whatever, implementing more and more of this masculine programming that, you know, this masculine energy programming of like competition and energies like that. So what we want to do is, opposed to that, is pulling in that divine feminine energy that we're helping to bring up so that we can be working with the masculine and feminine. Pulling up that feminine energy of collaboration, community, communication. That is such a key part of the ascension process. Without that piece, like the whole point of ascension is moving from separation to unity, right? Moving to collaboration, community, connection. So when you actually do have a community or a small group or a best friend or somebody, some physical human person, like definitely be working with your guides too, but some physical human interaction that allows you to feel supported, the more expansive your journey is going to be. And the more light your journey is going to be, right? Because we can get into some heavy energies with ascension and when we're releasing and when we're moving through. So having a community that you can kind of laugh around with, like, oh my God, this happened to me, and other people totally know what you're talking about, helps you to feel that energy of connection and unity and expand that, so that when I'm talking about this practical ascension, it's not like when I'm meditating from 2 to 2:30, right? It's your whole life. It's everything, right? It becomes interwoven into everything that you do and say, right? All right, so the final part of the human ascension key. So this is just our first key. How am I doing for time? I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I know I'm already talking really fast, but if you're really enjoying what I am putting down, watch this a second time for sure. Is rhythm and cycles. So again, we're human. We're not meant to, and again, we've been ingrained that things are linear, this is the way it goes, but we're not. We're cyclical. We're going on cycles. We have our very own unique process. It's all a balance. So you're going to have times, for example, where you're going to need more rest. You're going to have times, for example, where you're going to want to be absorbing information. Other times where you want to be looking kind of inside for information and grounding what you have absorbed. So just remembering that you're a cyclical creature and that it's not meant to be a linear, straightforward path where one day is exactly like the other. Being open to being adaptable to the energy of ascensions, again, helps to bring in that lightness so that it's not so like, you know, I'm going crazy energy or this is a lot to release. You're balancing it and you're kind of harmonizing it with the energy of lightness, okay? All right, so all of that is packed into key number 1, and that's that it's human ascension. So we're human. Hey, Samantha, yay! Yay, so lovely to see you. I can't wait to go back and check out your DNA video from yesterday. I saw you just popping on, so I'm excited to see that. Okay, so practical ascension key number 1, human ascension. Yeah, no, don't be so hard on yourself. Exactly. It's not like you have to ascend. It's like we get to ascend. Like it's just a very slight shift in perception and energy that changes everything. Okay. Practical ascension key number 2 is your intuitive insight and discernment. So it's everything in that package. So when you're moving through the practical ascension process, having your own intuitive connection is so key, right? And having your discernment in place is also very key. So that if you're going outside of yourself for information or getting a reading with somebody, great, go ahead, do that. We all need that boost at some point. But allow yourself to still run the information that comes through your own discernment system, so that you're not just like somebody tells you something about yourself and then you're like, oh, okay, well, that's me, that's me. So say, for example, somebody was like, in a past life, you were wounded as a healer, you were, you were killed as a healer, and so you're never going to want to speak your truth, right? And so even if that's not something of yours, even if that happened to be something they were projecting, you take that in and you're like, okay, well, that must be me. And then you kind of developed a mental pattern that maybe doesn't need to be there. Whereas opposed to that, if you go into your own discernment system and you say, does this information feel true? Does this feel good? Does this feel right to me? Does this feel like soul truth? Then you're going to know if that's something that you, yes, want to take on and you want to look at and you want to deal with, or if it's something that is not even resonating for you. So that can go in many different ways. But your own intuitive connection is a real key piece, and especially the discernment piece for moving forward. Discernment is so powerful. So if nothing else, kind of take a moment and tap in. Even if you don't find yourself an intuitive person, your body knows this information. So you just breathe into your heart chakra, grounding your energy, making sure you are hydrated and that your basic needs are taken care of. Because if your blood sugar's all over the place and you're dehydrated, you're not going to know what the hell's going on anyway. So take care of yourself first. But coming back to this intuitive connection and just asking, is this highest and best information for me? Does this feel like soul truth? And practice with that and see what that feels like in your body, and then see what it feels like if you just take something on that's completely not true. So say something like, I'm unworthy and I don't deserve to be here. Guess what? That's not going to feel like soul truth, because it is not soul truth. And you'll feel the difference in your body of how soul truth feels versus illusion. So getting to know that discernment so you can move all information through that system. All right, 9 more minutes. We're still doing it. All right, so we got key number 1, human ascension. Key number 2 is intuitive, your intuitive connection, your intuitive discernment. Keys number 3, 4, and 5 all go together. So that helps us out a little bit. And so this is your body, mind, and soul, okay? So key number 3 is your physical body, your hardware. Key number 4 is your mind, mindfulness, and emotions, your software. And key number 5 is your instructional field, your energy field, your soul. So that's what's instructing it. So you have your hardware, your software, and then you have your instructional field. So your hardware is very important. Your physical body is very important. If we're going about Ascension being like, well, let me do this energy work, let me do this energy work, and just like going nuts on it, you're gonna have to hit a wall at some point and take care of your physical body too. Because your physical body is like, hey, I need care over here, I need adjustment. So it's around paying attention to which aspect of yourself is really calling for the Ascension focus, for the Ascension growth, right? Tons of beautiful, amazing information in this summit about physical support for the Ascension process. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Check out some of the other videos. You'll see why that's so important. And then there's the mind, mindfulness and emotional. So this is the software program. So what I encourage people to do is have an intelligent distrust of their belief systems, so that they know any belief systems or thoughts that come through are not necessarily true. So you have kind of like this intelligent distrust of your belief system, while at the same time ascending and like really anchoring into your soul trust. So your discernment is that soul trust that shows you the truth, and your belief systems can totally be off base. They can, come from our ancestors, from inherited, from society, from our early childhood. It's not always going to be true. So part of the Ascension process, in my personal experience and opinion, does have to do with reworking the belief system into what is empowered and into what is aligned for you, what is soul truth for you. So that mindfulness really creates a lot of value, because then you can say, oh, I tend to think about this a lot, or I tend to focus on this a lot. Yeah, right, intelligent distrust of your belief system. I know that came to me last month and I was like, that's good. yeah, so the more that you're paying attention to that and making the adjustments, and it's not even that you have to dive in and be like, oh my God, I have to look at all my beliefs. Your life circumstances will always show you what beliefs need to be looked at next. So if like money's lacking, relationships are going weird, pause. Okay, that's the belief system I need to look at. That's simple. Okay, then moving into the instructional field. So that's energy work. At the very basis, if you're not called to energy work, but like, I mean, if you're attending this summit, you're called to energy work. If you're not doing any type of energy work, at least be breathing into the heart chakra, grounding. So establishing the connection above to like that source, that God, that universal energy, establishing the heart connection and establishing the connection to the earth. So at the very minimum, using that energetic soul connection in that way, and then, you know, spiral out into wherever you're guided, because you're always going to be guided to the exact right energy for you. Okay. All right. So that's keys 3, 4, and 5. I feel like I'm on like that. You remember that like old show, like Supermarket Sweep or something it's called, where they're like trying to get everything into a card at once. That's what I feel like I'm doing. But we're doing really well. 5 more minutes. Okay. All right. Key number 6. So we have number 1. Key number 1 is human ascension. We are humans ascending. Key number 2 is our insight, intuitive, and discernment. Key number 3, 4, and 5 is our physical body, our mental body, our spiritual body. Key number 6 is expanding potential. This is the fun one, right? So this is both your feelers, you're feeling out there and learning new stuff and absorbing new frequencies, and it's also your expressors. So then you're expressing that new vibration out. So this whole expansion is when you're stretching what is possible, when you're reading a book, working with a coach, working with a teacher that's allowing you to expand what you consider to be possible, probable, and real for you. So that, you know, what am I capable of? What's capable for my life? What's capable for the way that I'm seeing things? Like really allowing that expansion to guide you, and your soul and your soul's helpers put these clues all out for you before you started this life. So like, you don't even need to be like racking your brain as to where do I go next. You just pause, and that's where that insight comes in. What am I feeling guided to? What am I really kind of gravitating to on social media? What am I feeling like watching? What books am I called to? Pay attention to those sparks because they guide the way. Okay, got all my keys out, doing really good. All right, so really quickly, if you are really vibing with this info, definitely check out my podcast, Practical Ascension Podcast. Let me take a breath because I can slow down now that we are at the end. So check out the Practical Ascension Podcast, and not even incorporating how many of the Akashic Records things I want to say. So the whole reason of incorporating the Akashic Records into what I'm saying is that the Akashic Records play a role in every single one of these keys. But I'm realizing now I have so much information to share on it that it's going to have to go into the podcast this week. All right, so, but regardless of all that, check out the podcast. And if you're really resonating with this, I am running a live Akashic Records course starting this week, so I will pop that in a separate post, and then you can grab the information for that. But for right now, thank you guys for joining me live. Thank you, Catherine, for this container. Thank you, all the presenters and everybody who is watching. It's such a good place. So I know that next up is Larissa Terra, and she is going to be sharing her wisdom with us around healing with the Mantis Collective. So that'll be awesome. Thank you guys for all the hearts. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you, Samantha. All right. I will pop off now and go check out some of the other replays myself. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye.